This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Chris Diamantopoulos about The Sticky. How are you, Chris?
I'm well, Abe. I'm happy to be chatting again, man. How are you?
Good. We spoke about a year and a half ago, and I just listened to our previous conversation because I always am curious. Like, I don't remember everything from it. We talked about so many of your past roles and the main thing with Mrs. Davis, but it turns out you also said, I'm actually started working on this new show. It's called The Sticky. It's amazing. Margot Martindale, all this stuff. And you were so excited about it. So I'm glad that we get to revisit that now that the show is out there. I guess technically the show is out there today in the world, right?
That's right. Yep, dropped today. It's very exciting. Yeah, I remember when we chatted, it was still very brand new. It just goes to show you how much time these really special little projects can take. You know what I mean? I don't think a lot of people recognize how I mean, I think Brian and Ed, the creators and showrunners, this show has been percolating for them for over 6 years. So it's incredible. This is the little show that could. And now it's not so little a show. I think it's actually the big show that probably will.
It's great. Well, it feels like a good fit for you, but I'm curious what attracted you to the show.
I look. Let's see. We'll go from macro to micro. As an actor, I always look for a role that's going to give me something to dig into, something that's got teeth, and I like to take big swings. It's not only fun, but can be gratifying and challenging, and so that's sort of why I'm in the business. Uh, this role, 6 short half-hour episodes really gives me a chance to sort of start at the alpha and end at the omega of this character. He's like this snake shedding multiple skins, some voluntary, some very involuntary, as the show carries on. And those different levels, those different colors, that's a lot of fun to play as an actor. So I would say that that was the first thing that attracted me. I'm a proud Canadian, and I always look for opportunities to work in Canada or work on Canadian themed material, but it's surprisingly challenging to find something that I feel like I would add value to that is also interesting to me. A lot of the Canadian themed material that has come my way has felt more parody like and not necessarily like putting Canada on the global stage to compete with, other major countries like, like England or Ireland or Germany that are putting out, TV of really high quality, and that's what attracted me about this, that it's telling a Canadian story in Canada in a Canadian way, and it's elevated, and it's showing that Canada has these deep and compelling and dark and ridiculous stories. So there was that, and then on the micro, Jamie Lee Curtis and Margot Martindale. I mean, the minute those names were mentioned to me, to be honest with you, everything else flew out the window. And I just wanted to be a part of it. I've worked with Margot on two other projects. Mrs. Davis is one of them. We worked on Wedding Days, which is a film that we made years ago with Eben Moss Bacharach and Isla Fisher. But I love her and I admire her and I just absolutely adore her. And then Jamie Lee Curtis has been an idol of mine for as long as I can remember. A Fish Called Wanda was such a special movie for me growing up. I mean, really, I get to check a bunch of stuff off my bucket list with this one, Abe.
Well, I'm happy to see that it's a positive piece of Canadian representation, though I would think that, maple syrup is a little reductive as a Canadian stereotype, but maybe it's a point of pride for the country that we're not, isn't just a source of comedy.
So I think it's what I love is that it's a little bit of a nod, right? Which is what's terrific. So maple syrup is definitely a point of pride, but what we're telling is this ridiculously absurd and yet based on a true story, which I think is that's the whole point. If we can nod at it and we can wink at it and understand it, then it takes it from being a parody and it actually just takes it to being a compelling story with these broken, desperate characters.
Did you know about this true story or do any research into it aside from
Yeah,
the scripts?
yeah. I'd heard about it back in 2011 when it happened. I thought it was just absolutely audacious and insane. And then, of course, when the project started percolating, I watched that. What was that Netflix documentary? It was one of the episodes. I think it was called "The Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist," which was fascinating. Super compelling. Um, yeah, I think the fact that it happened is insane, and then the fact that we are telling the story is super fun.
One of the things you mentioned when we talked about Mrs. Davis and then also a little bit about the show is that you're older than you once were. There's a lot of action scenes, and it's a little hard on the body. What was it like getting to film this show in a very physical kind of role?
I hadn't budgeted mentally that for the fact that this show was going to be physically demanding. It is, you don't really pay attention to it on the page. It doesn't feel like it's going to be, and yet it ended up being one of the most physical jobs I've had to do in a long time. There was a lot of literal heavy lifting as the season goes on. There's particularly in episodes 5 and 6. There's a lot going on, and I'm glad I was in shape, and I'm glad that I was able to do it. But it was filming this every night. I went home uh, very, very gratified for a hard day's work, emotionally, psychologically, and physically. I earned my little 2 fingers of scotch at the end of the night. It was great.
As you said, 6 half-hour episodes is pretty short in one sense, even though there's a lot of content packed in there. But it's also all available at once. Is that how you'd recommend people race through it, or better to try to space it out?
When I was filming it, I was of the mind that it would be a great thing to wait for every week because every episode leaves on a cliffhanger, and people should know that there are these great little incidental scenes that happen at the end of the credits. I'm not sure if the streamer will just go right into the next episode, or if it'll get you to the end of the credits and then give you that little tease. But the little teases are terrific. So when I was filming it, I really thought it would be great to have people sort of wait to have to get there. But having had about a year and a half to really percolate and think, I actually think that this will play really well as a weekend binge. I really think it's kind of the perfect weekend binge for right now. It's cold out, it's December. There's not that much to watch, and certainly in the half-hour vein, something akin to Fargo or The Bear. I mean, I couldn't have planned it better. I really think this is exactly what people want. So yeah, I'd say start it tonight and then start screaming it from the rooftops on Sunday.
The reason it took me a minute to realize that, what today is the premiere day is I get screeners, but I still try to space them out a little. If I have like 5 shows to watch, I try to do one episode show one, then show two, and then cycle back so that I can still, because the idea of, binging is nice, but it also means that it's just over so
Right.
quickly. And that's, if it's good, it's disappointing once that happens.
Becky and I did that recently on Dark Matter. I hadn't seen it. I was late to the table, and what a riveting show. So well done. My pal Joel Egerton just kills it. And I went in with the intention of, okay, let's try a new show. We'll watch an episode. And man, when you get to the fourth episode and you've got 4 kids that are going to be waking up at 6 a.m. and it's past midnight and you're like, I want to do one more. And then you do one more and you're like, oh, I hate myself, but I love the show. So yeah,
And unlike something like the Sticky, that's something that didn't all get released at once. But the good thing about sleeping on it is then it's all available for you to just go through at that point.
there it is.
So, well, we talked last time about a lot of your past projects, and I still want to just mention because I think that, a lot of them really sort of stick out to me. The Twilight Zone episode with Adam
Oh,
Scott is really great.
oh, that was a
Uh,
great episode. And that was directed by Greg Yaitanes, who is phenomenal. And you'll see his name on some of like the best projects, some of the best shows that you've ever watched. Everything from Game of Thrones. I mean, he's brilliant, and we loved shooting that. And I'd never worked with Adam Scott before, I have to tell you. What a prince of a guy on set, man. That guy sets a beautiful tone as a number one. A really, really a good, like an actor's actor. And we effectively shot for 2 weeks in the fuselage of a plane. So that should have been, drudgery. It was a 12-day plane ride, but we had a fabulous time because of those 2 guys. Anyway, carry on.
no, I mean, if you're talking about a 6 half-hour episodes, that's just one standalone installment. And I feel like, Black Mirror maybe is the closest thing we get to that
Yep.
these days, but we
Yep.
don't we don't get, I feel like that's a format that really, may have even replaced like the TV movie is the hour-long special that is tangentially related, but also just so iconic, just that it's its own separate set.
Look, that was my favorite episode of the original Twilight Zone, and it was my favorite chapter in the movie, in the '80s movie with John Lithgow. Right? That I remember when I was a kid and I saw that gargoyle, I flipped out. I thought that was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. And then it's just so fun. I mean, really, I remember seeing it and it freaking me out. But how funny is it that I play the gargoyle? I'm basically the gargoyle. I love that. I love that I'm the gargoyle.
And I hope that episode is still available on Paramount Plus, I guess it would be these. That was a
Yeah,
CBS All Access.
I guess it would be. Yeah, I don't know, but that was super fun. That was a nice turn for me, man. I enjoyed that a lot.
I'm also such a big fan of episodes, and I feel like when we're talking about the transition of, comedy series from the sitcoms we knew into the more like prestige series, that's so it's still flew for having Matt LeBlanc, who was the star of one of the most popular sitcoms of all time. It still flew sort of under the radar for some reason.
It's surprising to me. I think that that's one of the best shows about the industry that's ever been written. And then aside from that niche, I actually think it's one of the best comedies written in the last 20 years. David Crane and Jeffrey Klarick, the way that they crafted the universe of that show, I don't know if you know this, they wrote all the episodes, Jeffrey and David, and they would, from my understanding, they would play act them out to each other, the dialogue to make sure that it followed a very specific rhythm. I mean, almost operatically. Boom, punchline, boom, punchline. And so it's funny. I don't know if I've told this story before, but when I got the job, I was super excited. I thought it was really, really neat. And I got off the plane in Heathrow. We shot everything in London. There are a couple exteriors in LA, but everything was in London. I was waiting for my bag, and there I see Matt LeBlanc. I hadn't seen him. I hadn't met him before, and he was like, "Hey, man, you're doing the show?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you ready for the table read?" Which I thought was an odd thing to say. I was like, "Sure." And the table read was the next day. I said, "As ready? Is there anything I should know?" And he said, "Oh, they didn't tell you?" And I thought he was messing with me. And what he said was, "No, we're reading all 9 episodes. We're doing it on a stage, and you have to perform. There's no actor with the ball cap on, face buried in the script, mumbling your lines. You perform because they need to hear it. And don't add a single don't make it that's if it's that is. Make sure you're ready." And I thought he was messing with me, but not enough to not prepare. So I stayed up all night because I had some swaths of dialogue to do in that thing. And sure enough, man, that was a performance. And the entire shoot was that way. There was no, it was one of the first times I've ever worked in television where the script was God and you didn't change it. But when you watch the show, you realize why. Because they even got his little guttural utterances in the script. Like when he would go, "Nyah," it was written, NYGUHHHHHW, whatever the hell it was. They really got it. They knew his voice very well, and the rest of ours too.
When you did the, music, I hear like the music of the show.
Yeah.
Um, Very quite memorable. Well, you always have no shortage of interesting roles. What's next for you?
Well, hopefully a lot. I just finished shooting Ed Brubaker's Criminal, which is a limited series for Amazon that I'm really excited about. My understanding is that they're going to release them as events. The first one stars Charlie Hunnam and Richard Jenkins, among others. I'm in the second event, which stars my new favorite co-star ever, Emilia Clarke. Man, she's the goat because she's not only supremely talented and just unbelievably watchable and charismatic, but she's the nicest person on set that I've ever been with. I mean, it was literally like in those Looney Tune cartoons when Pepe Le Pew walks by and the flowers wilt. Well, it's the opposite. She walks by and the flowers turn around so that they can get a look of what true beauty is. I mean, she was amazing. So that show I'm very excited about. I did that stint. It's Luke Evans, Emilia Clarke, among others, and that's going to be super fun. I'm on Taylor Kitsch's Dark Wolf, which is also on Amazon. That's going to be coming out. That was a super fun turn for me as well. And talk about an amazing guy to work with. That guy's just such a ridiculously good leader. Um, yeah, there's a few things percolating out there. I'm excited. I think 2025 is going to be the best year yet.
I can't wait. I look forward to chatting sometime then about whatever's up and what's new and happening at that point.
I look forward to it too, Abe. Thanks again, man.